Well, I did do a video about how to do a carburetor, but I screwed it all up, so I'm going to do a different one and actually post it. First thing I do to rebuild a carburetor is to take out the primer first. This one hasn't actually got a primer, so this carburetor does work, I think, but I have already rebuilt this once. I'm just going to show you, give you an example. It's still wet inside, so I'm probably going to have to dry it. So once you start just by stripping it, just take everything off. All your needle. This only has one needle, so it's not going to be that one. Not going to be too hard to take one of these apart. If you're not any good with engines and that, and you haven't done anything to them, this isn't too difficult. Just make sure you're somewhere with a clear area, you've got all the right tools. You need more than just a screwdriver, but it's the only thing I've got with me at the moment, except for a pair of pliers and a vice grip. Once you've got your back plate off, take your membrane off. If your strimmer's running rich, chugging smoke, well, more smoke than what it should, just not running well overall, it's because this is stuck on. That's good. You probably need a new membrane like this one here. You can see on here it's got all these little wrinkles going here and there. This makes them run so rich, it's insane. This isn't this actual. Actually, no, this is the right one for this carburetor. This is the one for this carburetor. I was going to swap it for a different one because this used to be good, but I left it too long without any petrol in it and it wrinkled. You want to make sure this is fiddly to get back into. If you don't need to take it out, don't leave it in. When you're doing this, it's good to have a blowgun on a compressor. It's always just a little bit better to have one of them. You can do it just as well, just blowing it with your mouth, and a bit of good old bog roll does it absolutely fine. Just want to make sure everything is dry, no water in it or petrol or anything when you put it back together. You want it to be absolutely bone dry, so when you've connected it back up to the engine and you start priming it, it doesn't get any water in your. It'll flush all the water out, but that will then sit in your petrol tank, and while it's running it will suck up water and it will sit in your carburetor. Once you start running it with water and they start to scrub again, you have to strip it all again. Once it's in this state, you can take the throttle out to do it. I've already done the throttle on here, hence it's nice and shiny. See? On here, whenever you swap carburetor from engine to engine, make sure the hole is going to be in the same place as these. On most engines, I think they are, mostly. That is so, when the crankcase is pressurised, the pressure goes up a hole in the crankcase, through the manifold, through this hole, the carburetor, and the carburetor will then squirt out a little bit of fuel, goes out into your engine. Once you've got it in this state, you just want to get a toothbrush or a small metal wire brush, something like that, anything really. Anything that you can get into these holes and give it a good proper scrub and to clean it out the best you can. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute here. When I stripped this the first time. Oh no, it's here. Never mind, panic over. There's this little gasket on there. If there is any stuck on gasket, you're going to want to take that off and put a new one on. If you can't find the right gasket, be very careful and cut one out with gasket paper. If they leak, you'll never get it to run right unless you've got a new one on. I have done it before. It's not the best idea, but it works. These here, often, only one of them get not extremely, but fairly dirty. The other ones are normally already gone through that little fine filter. If they haven't gone through that, it's normally dirty. This one isn't too bad, you can tell it's just got like a little kind of black kind of crust on it. If you can't get it off, it's actually stained with metal. So don't try and scratch it off, otherwise you might have little metal shards in it and it'll block up the jets when it's running. Then it'll run too lean. Once you've got it like this, stick it on the radiator and stick it on the radiator for a couple of hours after blowing it out with a blowgun. You want to do it with a blowgun first, so that you get rid of most of the water, because if you have small puddles of water, you put it on the radiator, you let it dry, then you get little patches of the chemicals actually in the water, kind of like limescale. You get it in, get limescale in your carburetor. This has got a little bit where the spring rests for the little needle. The spring has actually got a little bit on it though. You just roll it in your finger a little bit. Try not to bend it or stretch it or anything like that. Make sure you always do it on a clear workbench so you can't lose any of the parts. Sometimes it's good to have something to put parts in, things like screws that'll roll away. When you do, before you take it apart, if you feel your throttle, make sure it's not sticking, or make sure there's nothing that can mess it up. So if that shaft's dirty that goes through there, and it was just these, it's gonna get stuck at one speed. It'll make it hard to start, and if it's at a low speed, it won't affect starting. It depends how you start, what the starting procedure is for your strimmer, or brush cutter, head strimmer, weed eater, weed whacker, whatever you call it. These tend to get quite grubby as well, because as your diaphragm goes up and down, the pressure on this side will obviously change. So to stop it, and if it gets a high pressure, this diaphragm isn't going to be able to move, and it will keep your your needle open. They put a little hole in it, which lets all the pressure out, lets your diaphragm go up, lets the jet go back down. So that, however, gets blocked from dirt or crud, and it's in a noticeable place when you're filling it up with petrol or something like that. Make sure you just give it a little wipe over. If it's really heavy dirt, like thick, greased on mud, never wipe it. Always take off the carburetor, take this off and clean it, because otherwise as you wipe it, it'll push the dirt through that hole, and it won't do us any harm, but can't do it any good either. Always just try and make sure it's always well maintained, and never over torque the screws that go into the actual carburetor's body. If you over torque them, bog off, you cow! Sisters, just stay laughing. Oh, see what I mean? These just roll off. I haven't got anything to put all my bits in, so. These things here, these often, if you take these off, make sure they're clean before you put them back in. If they're not, and you put it in, it doesn't run properly, you're not just going to be able to take it out and clean it, because it'll actually put little scratches in it, and it won't make a proper seal. Even with the gasket on, it won't seal properly. Well, clean this with toilet roll or kitchen roll, same with this, and this bit, yeah, and this bit. Needle screws here. This one is the low. This is the low screw mixture. So if you can just get it as clean as possible, it's not going to make too much of a difference. Just if it's got any scratches or little marks on it, replace it. If you ever get a carburetor on something that's, when you rebuilt it, it's got a missing thread, don't try putting another screw in which is just a little bit bigger. It's going to hold it on. You're better off just replacing it. The amount of maintenance you have to do just to get it to the amount of maintenance you actually have to do just to keep it running, you're better off in the long run just replacing it. So once you've done all that, just stick it back together. I want to start really with the probably the bottom side. Really doesn't make much difference, but needle first, just trying to debate which way I should put this in.